This here is a remarkable,
Welcome to the Wedding of Distinction podcast, a program for the unique bride and groom. The Wedding of Distinction is a concept where brides and grooms want something better. Not just your average wedding. We have the tools to make that happen. Now, here's your host, Mike Fernino.
Hello, everybody. Happy New Year, and welcome to the Wedding of Distinction podcast. And I am indeed your host, Mike Fernino. That's me. As I mentioned, we have a brand new year in front of us, and with that new year comes a ton of newly engaged couples. The majority of engagements actually happen during the holiday season, which includes Christmas, New Year's, and Valentine's Day. The majority of men go down on bended knee during these dates, so consequently, wedding professionals gear up for what we call booking season. It's a time of the year where more weddings are announced and deposits are put down on wedding professionals than at any other time of the year. Certainly, after booking a venue, the most popular choice is either the entertainment or the photography. These are part of the main services that every wedding should have. On the program today, I speak with master photographer John Munno of John Munno Weddings. And he's a very experienced professional photographer. Our discussion is going to cover how to find, research, and book a great photographer, what to watch out for, the pitfalls, and the mistakes that couples can make. John covers the ever-changing environment of wedding photography and how couples view a photographer's work. And I want to thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day to listen to this episode. So let's get right into it. Today on the Wedding of Distinction podcast. On the Zoom line, my good friend and the guy across the river from me, Mr. John Munno of John Munno Weddings. How are you, photographer extraordinaire?
I am well, getting a well-needed rest from 19 months straight of shooting.
Yeah, we were just talking before I hit the record button about how busy 2022 was. How was it for you? I mean, one of your busiest years ever, I'd assume?
Yeah, it was a marathon. You know, we because I went in all through last year. It was no break. I started January 2nd shooting. By March, I had already shot 10 weddings, and it maintained that consistency all the way up to December 29th this year. So it was like a marathon. You had to pace yourself and continue to keep breathing and going through it.
Yeah, which is why I didn't do many Wedding of Distinction podcasts last year. I was working Music in Motion. We were booked up solid pretty much after Easter. It was every weekend. Boom, boom, boom. And not just weddings. We were doing so many graduation parties and school dances because for many it was their very first event that the school or the families were able to have in several years. So amen that we're almost back to a new norm. Happy New Year, by the way, 2023. And so we know that this is the engagement season. So many guys go down on bended knee over the holidays, Christmas, New Year's, and coming up Valentine's. So this is the big time that the wedding vendors, the wedding professionals go out and kind of jockey for position to earn the business. And there are going to be so many newly engaged couples, hopefully, that listen to this podcast, and they're looking for a photographer. I know you're not going to argue with me when I say that probably the big three that you have to get after you get the date, and for some after you get the groom, is the venue, the food, the photography, and the entertainment. These are the big three, and they are probably the things that are needed most in the early stages of booking. So we're going to talk today about how to hire a professional wedding photographer. I know you're good at this, so go ahead.
Yeah, you know, I think about this a lot. And the reason I think about it is a lot because I see so many stories from brides, and especially post-COVID. You know, there's been an influx of newbie photographers to the market because we were all booked. We couldn't handle the load. So people came out of everywhere calling themselves photographers. And the way that photographers meet couples meet photographers is very different. You know, in the old days, you had to go to a bridal show. You had to meet them. You had to, pay for vendors to be on the knot, things like that. So we were invested in the business. We had to spend thousands of dollars to go to shows and things like that. But now there's all these Facebook groups going on where anybody can get on there. They can just say, I'm a photographer. They can post a couple of images And what happens is couples get fooled because couples can't distinguish between who is good and who is not good. And so what's happening is so many couples are saying we didn't get our photos in time, our photographer flaked on us, it's been 6 months, we haven't heard from him. I have never in my career heard such insanity with what's been going on with not only photographers, other vendors as well, but really with photographers. And so I do these kinds of things because I want to help educate brides, because so many of them, they don't know who to choose. They see a photographer, but photographer, they're all not the same. And you have to keep in mind things like, to be an electrician, you have to go to school, you have to learn codes, you have to do things the right way, you have to pass tests, but there's no standardization with photographers. So anyone, as long as they have a camera, can call themselves a photographer, and the experience you get from one is going to be totally different from the experience from another. And who do you tell who's going to be good to you versus someone that's going to flake on you? Hence our discussion today.
Yes. And it's almost the same thing with the DJ and the professional entertainment industry, but we'll save that for another podcast. So back in the day, couples, you mentioned bridal shows, and that's another topic I'm going to hit on this year as far as our podcast and whether they're still relevant and whatnot. But, couples came out to bridal shows because they wanted to experience the tangible elements of booking and planning a wedding. They wanted to meet the wedding professionals. And in the case of photographers, they wanted to look through the wedding albums. Do we do wedding albums anymore, John?
I have a special place in my heart for the creation of wedding albums. And it is a dying thing in the industry in a lot of ways, because people don't want to, they're expensive to make. Vendors don't want to spend the time to make them. A lot of these, I call them fly-by-night studios, they don't even make them because they're not invested in it. And I have couples call me from other photographers that are like, can you make an album for me? And I go, hey, why don't you talk to your photographer? Oh, he doesn't do albums. So I still do albums. A lot of my packages I include in there because my parents still have their wedding album from, 60, 70 years ago. And albums are beautiful things. So I have gone through wedding album school and designed beautiful albums. And I still make a lot of them because I believe in them, and they're a beautiful way to hold the memory of your wedding images.
Now we're going to talk about how couples are finding photographers now in 2022, 2023. I'm going to come out and just mention one particular name, and that's Thumbtack. And I'm not looking to get sued or anything, so I'll be very careful how I say this. But you don't need to have any type of accreditation. You don't need to have any type of approval, authentication, really, of professionalism or experience to be on Thumbtack. You just say, I'm a photographer, boom, get a little logo, and you're on there. There's a lot of these online sites in which brides and grooms are now going to because they have really worked the search engine optimization. Great. They're top of page. Boom. That's one of the first names that a couple will see when they just photographers in Connecticut. They come up at the very top all the time. So there are so many amateurs that are participating in these groups. What do we do to get the word out there that professionalism is still something that is so important versus cheapest price? And how do we protect brides and grooms from making the mistake of hiring a novice that really has no experience shooting a wedding?
Yeah, and that's the question. And wedding photography is the most difficult form of photography. So when people say, I want my friend to do it, and people say, oh, this person shoots babies, they can do my wedding. It's a totally different animal because you're dealing with time, you're dealing with constraints of dark lighting conditions. You need special camera equipment, flash, lighting, all that stuff. So it's like not the type of photography that you want to be like, okay, let's just try this kind of a thing. So you really have to be a detective, and that's what I'm going to talk about. You have to be a detective to investigate and get out your magnifying glass and start researching. And most of this is going to be on social media, is you have to research these kinds of things to find out what is good and who is good, who's not good. So I laid out a couple of things to like criteria to kind of look for to determine who's good or who's not. I have some other articles on my website where I go into depth of what questions to ask. But the first thing you want to find out is, who is the photographer? Who, and it's a simple thing, but you have big companies, national companies. And when you book with them, you look at pictures on a website, but they're not even shot by your photographer. They're shot by someone that worked there 3 years ago. So you want to know who is going to be shooting your wedding. So, you can either go with big studios or you can go with small studios. The advantage of a small studio is who the photographer is. You can look at their website. The reviews are about them. So you can have a more personal connection with that person. If you go with a big national studio or with a bunch of team members, you don't know who the photographer is going to be, and often they're not as experienced. They're starting off in the industry. That's why they're working for these companies, because the companies pay them less, so they build experience a year or two, then they leave. So you want to find out, who is your photographer. You want to find out how long have they been in business. So if you're looking at some studios on Thumbtack or Facebook groups, how long have these people been in business? And you can find that a lot of the stuff is traceable on the internet. So you can look at blog posts, you can look at Facebook posts, you can look at Instagrams, and you can see how long in time do these posts go back. So if somebody's only showing 3 months of posts, well, hey, that's maybe not someone you want to go with versus somebody that's displaying, 8 years of work. You also want to determine, most important I found, is what is the internet presence of this person. When I see couples get screwed or scammed, the first thing I do is find out, okay, who's the person, and let's do some research. And usually what I find is that the people only have maybe a blog or a WordPress thing or a small website. Maybe they only have a Facebook account. So they don't have a very large presence. And if you see that a company has a large presence, they're on Instagram, they're on Pinterest, they're on Facebook, they're on Yelp, they have a Google business page. If you do a search on them, you start to see that they're here, they're there, there's a large presence. You're going to have a better chance of success often with somebody like that versus someone that just has one little post or one little website or something like that. That's where I see most couples get into trouble when they hire those kind of people. The other thing that you want to look for is reviews. And reviews are not everything, but reviews are very telling, because I can tell you anything. I can tell you I'm great, I'm wonderful, I'm the best guy in the world. My Mike knows that's all true. I can say anything, but when couples are speaking about the services you provided, it's coming from their voice, not my own. And if you read those reviews carefully, then you're going to start to see themes of, oh yeah, I got my photos on time within 2 weeks. Oh, the images we got were beautiful. Oh, the photographer was great to work with. So if somebody has 5 reviews, is a lot different than someone that has 100 reviews, because reviews are hard to get. They're not easy. And when people pour their heart out in reviews versus 3 or 4 lines, you can learn a lot from reviews. So if you got one photographer that's got 5, someone that's got 100, I think you're going to get a better experience with the one that's got 100.
I think it's said that you could get 100 bad reviews for every one great review, because if somebody's very upset with their service, if they're angry, let's say they had a bad dinner experience, whatever, it's extremely easy. You're in the moment, you go right to your phone, boom, you leave that 1-star review and that scathing review of the service. However, if you're thrilled to death and you're happy, it's a lot harder to get them to go and leave you a review, even though they loved you. And you could even ask them, would you please leave us a review? Absolutely, when we get back from the honeymoon. And then it never happens. So any wedding professional that has a multitude of 5-star reviews, a good amount of them, has really earned that, because it takes a lot more motivation to get people to leave a great review.
Yeah, it does, more so than people think. And then when you add things like awards in there, it's another way too. If somebody has, let's say the Wedding Wire Couples Choice Award, if someone has Best of Not, those awards are very difficult to get, because if you make one mistake, one blunder, you're out the door for that year. So if you see a studio has consistency, Best of Not 2019, 2020, 2021, 22, it means that company is really working hard to do a good job and deliver, and to give you a good experience, versus someone that doesn't have any awards. You're taking your chances.
Yeah, we've got 12 of those, ding, 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 right there, and proud of it too. Another thing I want to hit on too, John, is the experienced photographer is going to know lots of different places to go and take the bride and groom to get the beautiful wedding photos, not just the ones that are taken at the venue, but those Disney style romantic moments on the water, whatever that the couple might want. You are the ones who are supposed to know the entire area and where is really the accessible, magical places to go. You're not going to get that with a novice photographer.
I wanted to do a post with or a thread or a topic one time on longevity in the industry, because it makes a difference. I've been shooting weddings for 10 years and I'm still studying. I'm still taking seminars. I'm still taking classes. This year, was my best year for the work that I've turned out. And the reason that is because I'm learning, even as time goes on, how better to manage time, how better to work with people. So photography is not just about taking pictures, especially with weddings, because you're dealing with time constraints. You're dealing with, organizing bridal parties of 20 people. You're dealing with people that don't want their photo taken. They don't like the way they look, but they hired you anyway, and you have to deal with the whole personality aspects. So learning these type of skills, and you have to work with indoor, outdoor, lighting, flash, off-camera flash, continual lighting. So these types of things don't just come in a year or a two, but it really takes the time and the experience of doing hundreds of weddings to really improve your skills. And what happens is it translates to more photos and better quality and better use of that time. So I can't say enough about, the importance of longevity in the industry, and really making sure that your photographer's been at this for at least, 3 to 5 years minimum.
So then let me ask you this. So a couple, they just got engaged. They're thinking about getting their photographer right off the bat. What's the procedure that you recommend that they follow? Because we've already confirmed that not everybody's going to go to a bridal show, and a lot of people are living on the internet, but there really is a degree of personal one-on-one that should happen as far as interviewing their professional. What do you suggest? We're going to make you a bride for a second, put you in the dress and all that stuff. Where are you going? How are you doing it? When are you doing it? What's the whole concept here?
So the important thing is you want to test. You want to test the waters of these people, whoever you're going to hire. You want to test the waters. One way to test the water is how soon do they get back to you? Okay. So you email them and they don't get back to you for 5 days. Okay. If that's your experience before a booking, I can pretty much guarantee after booking, it's going to be 10 times worse. So, how do they respond to you? How quick do they get back to you? You want to look at their work, not on a phone, but get on a computer. You can use a phone, but you want to tear it apart. You want to get on a full screen. You want to look at images. Are they sharp? Are they overexposed? Those types of things. And you can't really see that on a phone. You want to look at the reviews, as we mentioned. You want to look at the style of the photos, because it's one thing to take a photo, but you can totally change the way it looks through the editing process. And every photographer has different styles. So there's trends. There was a couple of years ago, it was bright and airy. That was the trend. Everybody was doing bright and airy. Now it's more of this boho brown, vintage toned, look that a lot of people are doing. It's tending to be more darker, moodier. So you have to look at those photos and do I like these? Do I like this style? But you can't go to a light and airy photographer and say, hey, can you give me dark and moody? It doesn't work. So you have to scrutinize the images. You have to make sure that it fits the style that you like. And then one thing that I suggest with couples is ask for full galleries. Okay. Anybody can put up 1, 2, 3 photos and say, great, I'm a wedding photographer. And you get all excited about it. Wow, cool. I love this image. Okay. But you want to look at full wedding galleries, and I tell my clients, somebody asked me, can you send me galleries? I said, I'll send you galleries till the cows come home. I have nothing to hide. If you like it, great. If you don't, that's fine. But I would want anyone up front to know this is me. This is my work. This is what I'm going to give you. So I tell couples, ask for full galleries, because you want to also see if a couple is only showing natural light. Okay, I'm a natural light photographer. Well, that's great. But, you do a winter wedding and 90% of your wedding's in the dark. It's indoors. It's in a church. Your ceremony is indoors. So someone that's a natural light photographer, and then all of a sudden they're thrown into a wedding, and it doesn't have to be December, but most of your wedding is indoors, hotel rooms, getting ready shots. So you want to see photos from every part of that wedding to see how does the photographer handle a church? How do they handle outdoors in bright sun? How do they handle a dark reception? That's going to be real telling. And then I would say that you want to, meet these photographers, either go to their studio, or do a Zoom meeting if you're out of state or something like that. But you want to meet them, you want to greet them, you want to ask them questions galore so that you can feel comfortable with them, not only in the work that they're going to do, but in their personality as well. Because on the wedding day, you spend more time with your photographer than any other vendor. I did a wedding a couple of weeks ago, 15 hours. I was with that couple for 15 hours from the early morning to the late at night. And, people are crying, people are stressed, people are emotional. So you want to feel warm and fuzzy. You want to feel comfortable that your photographer has got the personality that's going to jive with you, and that's going to be able to, get all the work done for you and make you feel comfortable.
Right. Amen, brother. So tell the listeners of our program here how they can contact you and how they can find you, John.
Okay. So my name is John Munno. I'm a wedding photographer out of Southbury, Connecticut. I'm all over the internet, like all over the place. So my website is johnmunnoweddings.com, JOHNMUNNO weddings.com. You can look it on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, whatever, and you will find me.
John, thank you for your time today. Happy New Year, my friend.
Thank you, Mike. Happy New Year. Thank you for doing this podcast. Thank you for helping all the couples out there. And thank you for being the professional that you are, because when you build your A-team couples with professionals that have been in this industry, it takes your wedding to another whole level and makes everything stress-free, go smooth, and that you have a great time.
I will confirm that as well. So anyway, I appreciate your time. I'll see you at the next wedding.
All right, look forward to it.
This here is a remarkable,
The Wedding of Distinction podcast is a production of Music in Motion Entertainment. All rights reserved. Any unauthorized publication of this program is strictly prohibited. For the Wedding of Distinction podcast, I'm Mike Vincent. Happy wedding planning, everybody.
Let's get